Hello, you are watching sqadia.com, and today our lecture topic is spinal cord, and we are on the fourth section of the spinal cord, that is the somatic reflexes. In this section, we will be going through what is the anatomy of a neuromuscular spindle, what is the anatomy of neurotendinous spindle, what is a typical reflex arc, what is a typical motor unit, and how actually these help in normal functioning of our CNS. When we started the CNS, we described it to you that actually the central nervous system controls every voluntary movement as well as involuntary function of your body. Now, if I have to, if this is my finger and I have to put my finger on one nose and then put it over here, now this function is actually under my voluntary control. But for this to occur, every muscle of my finger has to move in a coordinated fashion so that I can take my finger from this point to my nose and back to this point again. And so then when this is the voluntary movement is actually happening, we do not realize it, but at the very even point to point changes in the muscle tension, point to point changes in the length of the muscle is actually relayed back so that the fine tuning and coordination can occur. So what is a neuromuscular spindle? A neuromuscular spindles or muscle spindles are found in the skeletal muscles. They provide the central nervous system with sensory information regarding the muscle length, the rate of the change in the muscle length. This is I was talking about. They not only tell you what is the actual length, what is the rate of the change of the length as well, whether the muscle is contracting or relaxing. The information is used by central nervous system in the control of the muscle activity. But where are muscle acting? They are acting on the joints. And how the muscle are actually attached on the joints, they're form of tendons. So the tendons contain neurotendinous junctions. So what are the tension in point-to-point tension is actually relayed back to the central nervous system about what are the changes which are occurring in the tendon as well. Coming to the structure of the neuromuscular spindle, each spindle measures about 1 to 4 mm in length and is surrounded by a fusiform capsule of connective tissue. Within the capsule, there are 6 to 14 slender intrafusal fibers which are situated in the capsule or interfusal. Those situated outside are called extrafusal fibers. The ordinary muscle fibers situated outside the spindles are referred to as extrafusal fibers. The intrafusal fibers of the spindle are of two types, the nuclear bag and the nuclear chain fibers. Why they are called nuclear bag? Because they have a large belly in the center and they appear bag-like, so they are called as a nuclear bag fiber. As compared to, say, over here, the nuclei are arranged in form of chains. That's why they are called as nuclear chain fibers. But in these, the nuclei are arranged in form of a bag, bean bag. Therefore, they are called as nuclear bag fibers. The neuromuscular spindle thus plays a very important role in keeping the central nervous system informed about the length of the muscle, the rate of change of its length, thereby indirectly influence the control of voluntary muscles. Neurotendinous spindles, the Golgi tendon organs are present in the tendon and are located near the junctions of the tendon with the muscle. Now, how would the muscle attach to the bone in which they have to act upon? They are attached by help of tendons. So inside the tendon, you have neurotendinous spindles. And in the muscle, you have the neuromuscular spindles. They provide the central nervous system with sensory information regarding the tension of the muscles. Each spindle consists of fibrous capsule that surrounds a small bundle of loosely arranged tendon or collagen fibers called as intrafusal fibers. Similarly, in the neurotendinous spindle, you have some intrafusal, those are arranged in a thin collagen capsule, while those who are outside these capsule are called as extrafusal fibers. Now, these are the naked axons which are actually forming the neurotendinous spindle. These are intrafusal fibers, these are extrafusal fibers. And these are the muscle fibers which are actually coming into and eventually would attach on the bone in form of a tendon. And this is the myelin nerve coming in, and this is actually the relaying information that how much tension is there in this tendon at this point of time when the other muscle is actually contracting or not. So our brain is constantly being informed of how much the muscle is contracting, at what rate it is contracting, and at what rate the length of the muscle is changing, and how much tension is there at the tendon of the same muscle. The point to point of relaying of information actually is done by these neuromuscular neurotendinous spindles. Skeletal muscle is innervated by one or more nerves. In the limbs, head and neck, the innervation is usually single, but in the large muscle of the abdominal wall, the innervation is multiple. The nerve to the muscle contains motor and sensory fibers. The motor fibers of three types. As I told you, the large alpha myelinated fibers, small gamma myelinated, and fine unmyelinated C-type fibers. This is a classical example of a motor unit. This is a muscle and it is attached onto bone in form of a tendon on which it's going to bring about a change. But this is the anterior form of horn of the spinal cord. From this motor actually neuron is arising. Descending tracks had a synapses over here. The motor neurons from the anterior horn cells came out and eventually as a single nerve, because at this point there was a fusion of the posterior as well as the anterior root, and this single nerve actually travels down to form a motor end plate at the at the muscle. So as the motor end plate is formed, this results in a contraction of the muscle. But when the contraction of the muscle is occurring, the neuromuscular and neurotendinous spindles are actually relaying back information through the posterior subroot back to the spinal cord, so that how much contraction has to take place and how much has actually taken place. All that, how much has been done and how much has still to be done, are actually relayed back so that the contraction can be increased, decreased, or stopped altogether. Now this is actually showing a typical reflex arc. If you appreciate over, this is the nuclear bag fiber, intrafusal fibers. And then this is the muscle belly. You have a neuromuscular spindles over here and neurotendinous spindles over here. Now neuromuscular spindles will relay the information of the rate of contraction, the rate of change of length of the muscle. Similarly, neurotendinous would relay information of the tension in the tendon, and all this is actually going back in through the posterior nerve root, eventually synapsing it over here. And if you see over here, then once the synapse has occurred, the information has been relayed back. There was information coming in as form of descending tracks, because if I have to decide that okay, I have to point my finger to my nose and then to this tip, now this is a voluntary action. But to do it properly, there has to be coordination. So what actually is happening is, because when I am putting my nose over here, the neuromuscular spindles on this part of the muscle actually get activated. They know I'm pushing it on my nose now, and then I'm going it over there. But when I've reached over there, the sensory information is relayed back again that yes, that point has been reached. Now I have to return my finger from here again back to my nose. And similarly, how much contraction has to take place, all this is actually going on point to point, on point to point basis, that even on a second to second variations and changes are actually relayed back, and adjustment of it has been done continuously. If, for example, the information goes back that yes, instead of going on touching my nose, instead of my hand goes like this, now this information would similarly relate back, because yes, I've crossed my mark, I need to move my hand back to reach to this point again. So this is actually all the adjustments of the muscle contraction is actually done on the basis of two things. One is the voluntary control, that is through the corticospinal tract, which is descending down into this neuron. But similarly, all that which is actually coming in as well is weighed in, and then it is finally decided that okay, this was a voluntary action which was planned. Has that voluntary action been carried out effectively or not? If not, how much correction has to be done? So that is actually done on a moment to moment basis. So this is a diagram just showing a skeletal neuromuscular junction. When the spinal nerve reaches, a peripheral nerve reaches the muscle, it actually spreads out to form a foot end plate, in which this is the axon, of the nerve which is coming in, it spreads out to form a foot and a plate, and this is the point where the naked axon is there. Now this is the point of synaptic. There is a synaptic cleft over here in which the all the electrical stimulation and nerve conduction which has come over here to this point. From here the transduction occurs, that is the electrical stimulus actually converted into chemical one, and then again the transduction occurs, that is like chemical stimulus actually converted into a mechanical one, that is results in the contraction of the muscle. Now this is a more elaborate diagram, a large view of a muscle fiber. That this is the muscle fiber, this is the naked axon which is lying in there, and this is the synaptic cleft. As you can appreciate over here, this is the presynaptic terminal, and this is the postsynaptic terminal. Once the impulse arrives over here, it results in a release of presynaptic vesicles called as certain chemical mediators are released, and this results in binding of these chemical mediators over the receptors which are present on the muscle fibers, and this results in the contraction of the muscle. In this section we have covered neuromuscular spindle, neurotendinous spindle, what is the typical reflex arc, and actually how the neuromuscular spindles relay information in terms of the length of contraction and the change in the rate of the contraction of the muscle. Similarly, neurotendinous spindles relay information regarding how much the tension is there in the tendon at any point of time, and how the typical reflex arc actually results in a coordinated motor control, that we are able to do what we want to do, and we are able to do that in a very coordinated fashion. For more videos like this, keep watching sqadia.com. Thank you very much.